Do you wish somebody wrote down the recipe for your parenting challenges? Did you want tips and tricks to become a better mama for you and your babies? I know I do. If you're a mother who feels that you are doing the best you can with the hands you've been dealt, but you're still getting it done, then this podcast is for you. I'm so glad you tuned in to Nailed It Motherhood, because we might have the recipe that nobody wrote down. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Nailed It Motherhood Podcast. I am your host with the most, Tamara, Eldridge. Listeners, I am so glad you joined us today to get another powerful recipe on this thing called parenthood. Before we get into today's real and raw conversation, if something in this episode speaks to you or even just makes you exhale and say, I'm not alone, then go ahead and like, share, follow, or leave a review. If you want to support the show even more, you can donate on Buy Me a Coffee or subscribe directly through Buzzsprout. Every little bit helps this platform reach the parents who need it the most. But y'all know enough about me and my platform. Today's guest is who we came to listen to today. Today's guest is a mental health professional and a mom raising an autistic son. Despite all her knowledge and experience, she's had moments of feeling like a complete failure in motherhood. From being sent home from camps to being misunderstood in school, she's lived through the heartbreak so many parents know. But through the chaos comes clarity and strength to advocate not just for her child, but for others too. Her story is raw, it's real, and it's still unfolding, which makes it all the more powerful. Listeners, please welcome to the platform today, the resilient Dr. Martine Laventure. Lady, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on. It is beyond a pleasure to be here and tell my story to your listeners.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear it. I know that you've had some milestones this past week alone, and you have some more coming. So I know the story is going to mean so much more, but I'm going to let you tell that as soon as we get through with our episodic tradition, our toppy tale. So, do you ever kind of regret letting your children listen to certain songs when they're younger because you think, oh, they're young, they won't know about this song, they won't remember it? Well, I had an experience just a couple days ago where we were eating out and she wanted a drink. She wanted a refill. So she kept saying, can I get another one? Can I get my drink refilled? So I started singing, can I get a refill? And my child jumped right in to, can I get a ring? I was like, my son, what? Why do you remember that song? I have not played that song since she was about 2 years old. And she remembers it 3 years later. And I thought I was okay listening to this adult song. It wasn't completely raunchy, but the meaning behind it is like, oh dear, why do you know that song? So I have to really, really evaluate some more of the things that I may have listened to thinking she won't remember it. But thank you so much for listening to my Tommy Tale. I do hope I'm not alone on this one. I'm glad.
Not at all.
I'm glad it's not too raunchy where it was crazy in public. But she wouldn't stop singing it. She would not stop singing it. So, that's my child. And I guess I should be very proud of the musicality of her, right?
Absolutely, because it just made me think of when my son was younger and we used to be in traffic and the things he said. And I'm like, ooh, okay, let me.
Right. They're sponges. My goodness. And you just never know when they're listening. It could come out 3 years later, like it did with me. Well, again, thank you for listening to my Tommy Tale. I feel so much better now that I know it is not just me. So we are going to actually move on because I want to hear more about you. So we're going to jump into our personal parenting journey where you get to share your herstory segment. And Before we do that, I have to read your bio because I want listeners to know the expertise of who they're listening to. And then once I'm done reading your biography, I'm sliding out the way so you can have the floor.
Okay.
So, Martine Laventure is a licensed school social worker and founder of Laventure Consulting Services, where she supports families, educators, and organizations through advocacy, parent coaching, workshops, and training. She works closely with neurodivergent children and their caregivers, especially with Black and Brown communities. 2 snaps for that. Also, she runs a monthly parent support group called Parenting Beyond Labels. Check out her video series called More Than a Diagnosis that centers her journey raising her autistic son. Ladies, mamas, glamas, the village, Miss Dr. Martine Laventure.
Thank you again for having me on. It's always a pleasure to talk about my story, my journey, because I feel like my story could hopefully inspire the next mama to know that they're doing the right thing or they're not the only one. Because sometimes you do feel like you're alone out here. My story starts when he was much younger. He had a flat affect, meaning that a lot of the times his emotions didn't show on his face. He didn't meet all his milestones. He walked late. Talking did not happen. We actually thought he was going to be nonverbal. He struggled with eating, sleeping. I was around 3 years old when we finally got the diagnosis. And the first thing we felt, I felt relieved. I knew my gut was right. And I knew now was going to be the time that the work was going to start. And that work was no joke. Trying to get him to follow the treatment plan with the behaviorist, going to daycare, from daycare, then going to a provider where he got OT in speech. And it was a long day for him, trying to get my family to understand his needs, sometimes arguing because they felt like I was being too harsh on him, getting his father to understand what was happening with him. And it was just so easy for family members just to bend to what he wanted, and instead of seeing him struggle. Nobody wanted to see him upset. So it was a lot of back and forth with that. So my son, actually, through all the services and through all the help, he didn't start formulating sentences where other people could understand him, because what he was doing before is what we call vocal stimming. So it sounded like high-pitched sounds, but because he's ours, we understood what each high-pitched sound meant. Somebody outside the household would not have understood that. So it included him going to speech 2 to 3 times a week. And it also included us doing speech flashcards every day in the afternoon before bed, and sometimes in the mornings, just to get him to practice and his articulation and feeling more comfortable. So because he struggled with his speech and getting others to understand him, a lot of the times he came out in what people would call a tantrum or a meltdown, but he was really frustrated. And because he didn't know how to express it, it came out in large emotions. And certain places that he went to, such as summer camps, did not know how to handle it. So some years we went to 2 summer camps in one summer because they were saying, we're sorry, but unfortunately he needs a higher level of care that we can't provide. So, you felt defeated. You felt like, would he ever be able to find peace? Would he ever be able to find some type of normalcy in summer camp schools and things like that? But we were very lucky that the school district that he's about to graduate in was there for us and gave us the help that he needed. Second grade was tough for us because this is when he came back into a general ed setting. He was in a specialized school before then. And it was just hard because he was in a regular setting where one teacher, no other adults to support. So they didn't understand his nonverbal cues. So a lot of times he had those big upsets. And I or his father would get phone calls constantly. He's having another upset. we think it's time for you to pick him up, or they would evacuate the classroom. So now, optic-wise, it's saying to the other children that my son is a danger to them because they have to immediately leave the classroom because he's having an upset. So we had a lot of ups and downs with that. Third grade came and we got him into therapy. He started to like school again. We had the right psychologist and things were moving along. But then it was the transition to middle school that we started to have a lot more struggles. Regression happens, and it's real. Regression is real. It was something that we had to accept, and he developed skin picking as a way to relieve some of his major upsets. Because again, he struggled with verbalizing his true feelings because a lot of times he was so overwhelmed by it all. He would sometimes say like, I'm mad, angry, sad, and scared all at the same time, and he did not know how to place it, so it came out in upset. But then when he discovered skin picking, that was our sign to say like, this is a lot. So then we went through the route of medication, and that was scary for us too. But that's where, my role as a social worker came into play, because the doctors wanted to put him on a very high dosage of medication. And I'm like, no, because I work in the field. I work with young adults and adolescents who were on this medication, and I understood the side effects. I said, absolutely not. I'm not taking it at this dosage. And it was a back and forth until finally I told the doctor, I was like, I'm going to accept 1 milligram of this medication because he started at 5 milligrams. I said, I'll take it at 1 milligram. I'm going to split it in half and give him 0.5. And during the 4 weeks, I'm going to be teaching him what are possible side effects that he could experience. So now he has the words to know, okay, this is not how I'm supposed to feel. So I'll collect that data. When we come back to the doctor's appointment, I'll let you know how he did and if we're going to go to the full 1 milligrams. Needless to say, me and his neurologist are best friends now, because I was able to advocate for my child. And that is something that I have not stopped doing, is advocating. And from that moment on, my son has been doing better. He still has his ups and downs. Socially has been very challenging for him, and understanding other students, understanding who he is, trying to find the right friendship group. And as the mom, standing back and letting it happen, because as his mom, I want to jump in and I'll be like, oh, y'all not going to talk to my baby like that, or, something to that effect. But he has to be able to navigate that. And when he goes through it, then come back home to us and then have those conversations. And whether it's with us, his therapist, on how to navigate these social issues. And we fast forward to high school. My son discovered sports. He discovered other friends. He discovered talents he didn't have. And now we're in his senior year. He is going to college in the fall, the college of his choice. He is happy. We still are having our ups and downs and upsets, but it's normal. We have to think about it. Not only he's autistic, but he's going through typical things that a teenager will go through. But he just went to prom on Wednesday, and I'm still floating on a high from that. My baby killed it. He looked amazing. He was happy. He stayed the whole night. Typically, he would want to leave after 30 minutes or an hour at any party, but he stayed the whole night. And I'm just beyond proud of who he is, and I'm just thinking of what his future is going to look like. He's going to be in a place where he could really thrive. The supports continue to happen. But in between all of that, there's definitely has been some regrets that I have as a mom. Certain things I felt like I should have fought harder for. Like, I don't think I should have allowed them to discontinue speech. I think if he continued on with speech, he would have been able to express himself a little bit better. We just got approved for state services a few months back. So this is going to aid him in adulthood. And another regret is I should have started this sooner. He could have had a whole bunch more services as he was growing up, maybe some social supports, finding other children who are like him, who have autism, me finding a bigger village of other parents who are raising children on the spectrum, because I didn't really have that. Although my village is amazing and they did what they had to do for me when I needed it, being able to have a person who is in the throes of it all, it makes a difference. So that has been our journey, and it's been hard. It's been beautiful. Sometimes I feel that my son, he didn't understand when we spoke to him about being on the spectrum. I mean, even one day he told us, I thought this was something I only had in elementary, but then there were other moments where he stood up in front of his classroom and told his classmates that I have autism, and because I have autism, I see the school psychologist. I get nervous a lot. When you guys are really loud, it makes me scared and it makes me want to run away. It hurts my ears. Or there are some moments where he just be like, I just need extra help. That's all that means. And even when he wrote his college essay, and I cried because he expressed himself and what it meant for him to be autistic and what that looked like while he was in high school and what his hopes are for himself. And one thing that stood out for me is he stated that why, as a person on the spectrum, he has to be looked at different when we all go through similar things, such as we all get anxious. We all like to be comfortable. We all may, if we have a favorite TV show, we may watch it, that same episode more than once because it was hilarious. So why is it that somebody who has the label of autism has to be looked differently than somebody else who doesn't, who experienced similar symptoms? And that just blew me out the water, because I'm like, you had all of that inside of you and we didn't know. But this journey has been, I've been walking that path alongside him. He has been leading the way, and beyond the providers, the teachers, the friendship issues, he really continues to lead the way. And I am a proud mama. I'm a scared mama. I'm a tired mama, but I am so proud of my baby. And that is my story of being his mom and raising him through all of this.
That was such a beautiful story. You said a lot. You said a lot in just a little bit of time. But before I even get into some of the notes that I took about your journey, I have to give him accolades because he is such a brave young man, where he's able to get in front of his peers and tell him, this is what's going on with me. This is why you might see these characteristics, but it's just because I need a little bit of extra support. That's amazing that he has the strength to be able to identify what it is and explain to other people what it is, as opposed to allowing them to get to him and making him sink inside of who he is. I love that for him. Yeah, that was a beautiful story that you were able to share. Another thing that I want to give you kudos for is allowing him to lead the way for his life and his journey. That is awesome that he's going to college of his choice, which means that he did what he had to do to make it there. Amen to that. I do have a question though, because I'm listening to your journey and you've talked about the times when he was doing well, and then he came from first grade to second grade, which was special education to general education. So that was a transitional period where he struggled. And then when he went from elementary school to middle school, that was another transition where he struggled. I'm wondering, do you have a plan for this next transition from high school to college? Because this is not just I'm moving to a different grade with new faces and new teachers. I'm moving to a different lifestyle where I might have to put a lot of the ownership and accountability on me, and mom is not going to be there every step of the way.
Yeah, so it's layered. So for one thing, from ninth grade to his junior year, his high school, they did what is called a STEP program, where the high school students went to the local college and they did math and science support. And also you got to do an elective. So if it was a math week, you got to do your elective, and he always chose video game design. If it was a science week, he always did Vex robotics. And it so happened to be the college campus of where he's going to go to in the fall. So he is very familiar with that campus. And along the way, I learned that that college also has this program called Bridges. Bridges is designed for adolescents and young adults on the spectrum. So they help with that transition. So when he got into his school of his choice, that he's very familiar with the campus, and got into Bridges, it was like an amazing thing. On top of that, we applied for state services in New York, which is called OPWDD. So that's going to help him with a lot of these transitions past high school, and he gets a lot of adult services. So those are the things that we have put in place so that transition can happen. So while he is on campus, he'll be able to meet with his advisor in the Bridges program and talk about, all right, how you doing with your professors, how to organize yourself to get your papers in on time, how to submit, how to utilize the library correctly, and things of that nature outside of us. And this would be all on him learning how to do it on his own.
That, as someone who's in education, that is phenomenal. We don't often have the opportunities to kind of walk students through at an early age. And what I'm hearing you say sounds amazing. I'm very happy for your family. I'm happy for him. I'm proud of this college that has this opportunity to partner with families that are experiencing this. So I have a question about when you speculated that there was the autistic diagnosis before you actually knew. Were you already in the field of social work, working alongside? Yeah. How did that make you feel as a parent when you saw the signs? You sometimes when you're working with families that are going through this, you kind of, this is what you do. But now you're raising a child who you think might be autistic. You might feel a little bit of guilt, or I don't know what you're feeling. What were your thoughts whenever you speculated?
It definitely wasn't guilt, because I felt like if it was guilt, that kind of falls into a lot of the stigma that is associated with it. I know it's not a death sentence. I just knew that means we had to pivot what our lifestyle was going to be, because the goals I had for him weren't going to change, is how we got to that finish line. And there were some moments where, like I said before, like I felt like, what is going on? This is a lot. This is where are we going with this? And I always tell this story. One of my colleagues has said to me, Martine, think about if this family came to you with their child with the same profile as your son, what would you do? What would you look at? And this is like when we were really going through the throes of it in second grade. And I had to say, like, he was nonverbal. We understand his nonverbal cues so well that sometimes it's hard to remember that not everybody else is going to be paying attention to that. Mm-hmm. So him transitioning from a specialized school to back into a gen ed school, he still had what is called an IEP, the individualized educational plan. How his services were going to be given to him was no longer in a place where everybody was in one place. He would have to get pulled out of class, and then transitioning back from a pullout was difficult for him. So that started a lot of his upsets. He went from a class size of 12 to 25. That was another upset for him. So the longer days was another upset for him. So all of these things were just piling up for him. And, he just had a lot of, and the teacher is not to say that she wasn't skilled or a vet of a teacher. It was just a lot when, again, she's the sole teacher and there were 24 other students she had to attend to.
Right.
So these are the things that I had to pull off my mom hat off and then put on my clinician hat on and look at the whole picture, then to decide, like, all right, this is what he's going to need. So when he transitioned after second grade to the next building, which is third, fourth, and fifth, we were able to put a plan, and he was into a co-teaching setting where it wound up being better. He had mandatory counseling on his IEP, which made things a whole lot better. He had individualized counseling and group counseling, and then we started outside therapy. So he had all of these wrapped around supports, and so that made the next step a lot easier for him. Not easier, but he was able to feel more supported and speak up a little bit more about what he was feeling, because now he had the tools.
Yeah. What would you say to a parent who does not have the background that you have, that is also experiencing similar symptoms and behaviors as your son in this position? How do they advocate? What are the things that they need to say to ensure that they are getting the support they need?
So one thing I always tell the parents is to just read up on their rights and don't be afraid to ask questions. Oh, you know, you could always either start off with your pediatrician, and then from there, go to the school, go to the social worker, the psychologist, even the teacher. Have these conversations. At the end of the day, understand, I guess also because I work in a school and I tell parents this, we don't want your child to come in and be upset and not feel successful. We don't want you as a parent to not feel successful. Let's partner up. And that starts with you just being okay and saying, like, we need help. This is what's happening. What can I do? I'm actually going through that right now with my sister-in-law, because my 6-year-old nephew is starting the process now, and she lives about 4 hours away, so she's kind of on her own, and a lot of times she will reach out to me, but a lot of times she's trying to navigate it on her own. And I keep reminding her, ask questions, take notes. So she has a little trusty dandy notebook. She jots things down and she comes prepared with questions. And sometimes she'll call me and say, like, how do you think I did? Or she'll ask me to jump in on a meeting. So yes, I act as her advocate, but there are advocates. You could get an advocate. You can ask or request one. But at the end of the day, too, the school is there for you. Reach out and get those resources.
Yes. I love the fact that you mentioned partnership. I actually recently did a presentation on the power of partnership, because we all have our area of expertise in relationships with these children, and we don't all know everything. So why not work together? And I'll make this very brief because this episode is not about me, but I had a incident this year where my daughter said something that was related to the work that I do. And so I had to pause and come out of my parental response and go into my professional response. And what I did was I ended up working with her teacher so that we could develop like a little lesson plan where my office could come in and kind of educate the students around proper responses and proper behavior to students that were dealing with this particular issue. I won't put it out in public, but if you ever want to talk to me offline about it, feel free. I do work in the Forbidden Office of Equity, and I say forbidden in quotes if you're not watching, because there's obviously a need for us. But I love the fact that you highlighted the partnership of it all, because we all saw in your story, we heard how partnerships really can work when you developed a relationship with your son's neurologist. And I love the fact that you were, first of all, able to advocate, but you went a step further after the advocation or advocacy. You went a step further and you did the research and you came back with data and you said, this is not going to work and this is going to work and here's why. And I love that. Not only do we have to develop that partnership, but we actually have to kind of do the work to make sure that we are getting our children where we need them to be. I love that.
Absolutely. We have to understand that we are our child's best advocate. I tell my son, he was like, what's an advocate? I'm like, kind of like your lawyer. He was like, oh, we could sue people. I'm like, no, Jalen, we can't sue people. But I'm here to be that extra support to, give that push that may need, that fight that needs to happen to get you this help that you deserve, because we all deserve it. And you have the right to the proper education. You have the right to the proper medical care, and we're going to fight for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to kind of brag on you. You are Dr. Martine Laventure.
Yes, I am.
And so I'm curious of what the journey of getting to the doctor looked like while you were also being an advocating mom, while you were also being a wife, while you were also being a friend, a cousin, a sister, a daughter, all of that. Because we do so much. And whenever I see a Black woman, especially with the doctor in front of them, I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to call you doctor. So, because you earned it. Tell us what that looked like.
So I always said I wanted to get my doctorate. How that was going to happen, I didn't know. I am the daughter of 2 immigrant parents, so it was definitely instilled in me. Education is key. Education is key. So I joke around with my mom and say not to take advantage of her journey and her sacrifice to come here. I was going to see it through. And it was my COVID decision to finally, while we were in quarantine, I was like, well, since I have the time, let me start researching. And that's exactly what I did. I started researching schools and I started applying to schools. I got into Tulane University, Roll Wave, and I did this program 3 years online, working 2 jobs, being a mama and being everything else. I still don't have an exact formula on how I did it. Sometimes I speak with some of my cohort mates and we were like, we really did that? I'm like, yeah, we did. But it was, I'm blessed. I had a village who helped. I'm blessed that I had a fight in me despite everything. Also around that time, I learned about my ADHD. Because I'm like, this school thing is tough, because between my master's and when I went for my doctorate, I'm talking about there may have been about like 9 years in between. So I haven't been a student in forever, let alone being a student online. And it was tough. It was so tough. There are some times that I'm online typing and everybody's asking me questions. I'm like, you don't see the computer right here? But then there were some times where everybody gave me that space to be online and take my courses. I lived on my laptop. If I wasn't on my laptop, I was on my phone. I typed every day, everywhere I could. And that was it. If I was in the waiting room while my son was at therapy, I had my laptop typing. If I had downtime at work, I was typing. So that was the only way I saw that through. I cried a lot. I really did, because I was like, is this the right thing for me? Like, should I have waited? Should I have done this part-time? But each time the semester ended and then I got my grades and I was like, oh, I did that. I'm like, all right, I could do next semester. Yes. It just kept going until I was like, wait, tomorrow's my defense. It's my defense. I did that. I think it was 2 things that like really, really stood out for me afterwards was, one, I'm always in my son's phone just to make sure, he's doing the right things on his devices. But he has sent in his friend group chat, oh, my mom passed. And so that meant everything. And then the next day I went to work. My principal had changed my name on my office door. So, and this actually, because I left early at work the day of my defense. So once I got it, I text her. So she already had it on my door. So the kids had hours of seeing my new name on the door. And so the next morning when I walked in, having those kids who look like me and I look like them call me Dr. Laventure, like I cried again. So the journey to Dr. Martine Laventure, if I could do it over again, I would, just to experience those 2 moments.
That's awesome. I'm going to say that it sounded like the formula to me was get it in where you fit it in. And guess what? It got done.
It got done.
It got done and it got done well. That is awesome. Last question before we move on to tea time. Can you tell us a little bit about Laventure Consulting Services and what that's all about?
So Laventure Consulting Services kind of came out because of all the questions I was getting from my school parents, and even going through this journey with my sister-in-law. I said there's tons of other parents who need this. Again, I'm happy and I'm proud of the personal village that I have, but I've been learning that my village should also include other parents who are going through this. And how can I do that? Why not make this official and have these services available? But it also is teaching providers on how to work with families who look like me, because it's not always understood about our culture, and so certain things may be perceived differently, and we're missing out on key information that could help better diagnose our children. Certain children who may have ADHD or on the spectrum, they're treated as a behavior and the children are punished. And learning on how to really have a trauma-informed environment starts with how to really see the whole child, and not just seeing them as a problem or a behavior and passing it on to the PPS staff, but really working with them in the classroom. So working with teachers, then it's also providers where, we have these intakes, but our intakes aren't culturally comprehensive. We're missing key questions to ask. And I always tell teachers this and other people, we need to normalize other people's normal. Just because it's not something that you may do or what you may know does not mean that it's wrong to that individual or that family. So that has been like my push. And it's also teaching children about how to be better peers and more patient with children who may have struggles. And that's through social stories. I am actively finishing my first children's book through Laventure Consulting Services, and that hopes to provide that teaching manual to children.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. I appreciate you coming on today and being vulnerable with us. You have such a powerful story, and the work that you're doing with it makes it even more tangible. And I love that. I love what you're doing. I love that you are out there, and I love the following that you are going to be getting from the persistence that you have in this work.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. You are so welcome. It is now time for tea time. So, tea time is a game of rapid fire. I have a bucket full of questions for you that we will be asking. Some of them are deep. Some of them are just for fun, but really it's just another chance for all of our listeners to get to know who Dr. Martine Laventure is a little bit more than what she shared of her parenting journey. Okay. So I am going to put 3 minutes on the clock. It's nice and big. 3 minutes on the clock, and we will get started to learn a little bit more about Martine. Are you ready, Doctor?
Yes, I am.
Listeners, are y'all ready? I sure hope you said yes, because we're starting with or without you. Here we go. First question. What's your dream vacation spot?
Bali.
Bali. Ooh, I can just see the dancing. I know that. What is the last TV show or movie you binge watched?
Ginny in Georgia.
I finished it today. What's the worst piece of advice you ever received?
When I was going for grad school, they told me that I wouldn't be able to work a full-time job and do grad school. Psych, I did it.
She did it and she nailed it. What's the best gift you ever received?
The best gift I ever received actually was a few weeks ago. One of my students presented me with a legacy award for being impact to him when he was in the 5th grade. So that was like one of my best gifts.
That's so awesome. What pet peeve will you never get over?
That's so petty. A pet peeve of mine is being inconsiderate of my time. Like, ugh.
I feel you. What's your guilty pleasure?
Oh, melted chocolate with a spoon. Oh, I said that out loud.
You did. I might have to put a picture over your face when you said it. But it's all good. Name one book, podcast, or resource that's changed your perspective.
The Anxious Child is talking about how our children is really addicted to devices, and they're just not the same children that, from times before, and how to really work through that.
Yeah. Yes, I have to read that. What's the most ridiculous fear you've ever had?
Fear?
Yes.
That escalator. I was like a month in going to escalator.
I'll share with you in a little bit, but this will be the last question. Mm-hmm. Which emoji do you use the most?
The crying emoji, because I be laughing.
Really? You laugh a lot? I would have never guessed it. I love it. You have a very joyful laugh and it's contagious. Thank you for playing Tea Time. I had a ball with you. Your answers were fantastic. I do want to share that I was okay with escalators until Rescue 911 growing up. And I was okay with them. But then I had a child and she wanted to walk on the escalator by herself. And it made me so nervous. And she would try to be getting on, but I made sure I had her hand. And it just took her too long. So I would always be like, nope, come on, let's go. And I always looked at me like that mean mama who's like, just let her try. Nope, I'm not letting her get sucked up in an escalator. We will take the elevator. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, mine came out of nowhere. It might have been related to my son. I'm not too sure. It came out of nowhere. I'm like, why can't I go down this escalator?
It's tough. It really is tough. I mean, that's a machine. Mm-hmm. I don't know about anybody else, but that can be very, very scary. At this time, I would love for you to be able to share any wisdom, any lasting words that you have for our listeners. What would you like to share with them to leave them that wisdom or some encouragement or motivation? I'm going to give you back the floor for that.
I'm going to say the advice I want to share with parents is that you got this. You have to give yourself grace. And that is something I am learning. We are working with what we know and what we have. And it's okay. Like, you were able to get up. You were able to get your child ready. That success may not happen the way you wanted to, but it's happening the way it needs to, and give yourself grace. You're hardworking. And that, again, is something I am slowly learning to do. And it's been a challenge, but beautiful at the same time.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else that is next for you other than your children's book that you're working on? And how can listeners connect with you? I'd love you to answer that.
So besides the children's book that I'm working on, I'm trying to host, not trying, I am next month in my community hosting a mental health fair. Nice. I want to be able to do more of that and connect local services to communities, highlight them. I'm trying to do more speaking engagements, get my story out there, and hopefully inspire others. People could get in touch with me either through my IG page, which is Laventure CSLLC. You could email me at also laventurecsllc@gmail.com. You could also visit my website, which is www.laventureconsulting.com. And you could see my YouTube. I'm trying to post more videos on there and stories. And that is Dr. Martine Laventure on YouTube.
Nice. Awesome. I will make sure that all of these are in the comments below. So if you do want to connect in any of those 4 ways, please make sure you click directly on the link in the comments. I have to thank you again for showing up and showing out on Nailed It Motherhood podcast. Your story was very, very powerful. It was concise, but very loaded at the same time. And I already said it. I love the work that you're doing. I'm honored that you chose to come on to Nailed It Motherhood podcast, because to me, it gives more value to the podcast when I have mothers like you who are authentic and just truly sharing the journey that they've gone on. And it's a true honor to be able to host this platform for that. Before we go, I have 3 questions that I would love to ask you. And I ask this to all parents because I just want to know, I'm kind of doing my data like you did. I'm doing my research, and I just want to know, is parenting hard?
The hardest thing I've ever done.
Baby. But is he still standing though?
Yes, he is. He is standing strong and tall.
He absolutely is. I'm proud of him, and I don't even know him. But what do you want to proudly tell our guests today?
This mama is nailing it.
Nailing it. Woo woo. If you like this episode and you want to hear more personal parenting stories, subscribe to my social media, Nailed It Motherhood Podcast, on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Also, remember that you too can be a guest on the podcast by simply completing a guest application. The link is also in the comments. We welcome all questions. We welcome comments if you like them. And we welcome ideas. We certainly hope to keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep on doing what it is you do. Smooches.
You're listening to Nailed It Motherhood Podcast.